Good afternoon. Good afternoon, folks.
Good afternoon. How is everybody doing?
Good.
It's hump day. So many familiar faces. We're just gonna give folks a couple more minutes to log in and how this works. While we wait, if you all would be so kind to enter your name and your agency in the chat room, so that way we can take attendance. We will start in 1 minute. All right. Well, good afternoon, folks. My name is Antoine Williams. I am the Director of Youth System Services at RochesterWorks. We have Dave Sealy, who is the Executive Director at RochesterWorks. Janine Friends, Director of Finance and Administration. Theodore Jordan Jr., who is the Youth Services Manager at RochesterWorks. And thank you, Casilda, for keeping an eye on those who are still being let in. And Theo is going to is volunteered to monitor the chat room as I go through my presentation. Oh, and last but not least, we have Viviana Severa-Pascasio, who is a youth services specialist who will be assisting should there be any questions around performance and whatnot. She's our in-house guru when it comes to those things. Okay, let me share my screen. 1 second. Okay, can you see my presentation? Do you see my notes? I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen.
No notes, just the presentation.
Oh, excellent. Woo, okay. Okay, so here's some highlights, things that we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about funding, the youth worker model, Navigator responsibilities, the population that we're trying to serve, reach, eligibility, 14-wheel elements, performance measures, budgets, and some do's and don'ts. Okay. So for those who are new, RochesterWorks, we are a not-for-profit corporation that serves as a physical agent and career center operator for Monroe County WIOA Workforce Development Board, which oversees millions of dollars in workforce development resources, including WIOA funds, which brings us here today. If you are looking to work with the out-of-school population, you are in the right place. This RFP went out March 10th. The date to submit your proposal is Wednesday, April 21st. Now, you do not have to wait until April 21st to submit your proposal, and I will advise you not to. Just from experience, you never know with technology, things can go wrong if we wait till the last minute. So if this is something that interests you based on what you hear today and read on your own, then by all means, feel free to submit. And with this particular contract, we will award up to or fund up to 3 years pending, performance and or funding. So keep those two things in mind. So $980,000 to be exact is what is on the table to fund and support 14 full-time equivalent Navigator positions to serve 350 out-of-school youth. And throughout the course of 3 years, should other funding become available, we will procure those dollars as well, especially when it comes to filling in gaps that may come up as relates to the population that we're serving. The youth worker model. So back in 2011, some community partners came together, and I thought it was important as we were starting to shift gears from funding programs to funding positions within programs. And the thought process says, in order to be successful, two things we should always keep in mind: youth voice, and second, when accurate information is shared with all of the partners. So even though the language over the years may change, it's still the same difference in terms of it takes a village to raise our children. And we cannot be afraid to reach across the aisle, so to speak, to work with other partners who have the expertise in the areas that we may not possess internally. So as you create your your program or draft your proposal, keep those things in mind. Whatever things that you do well in-house, again, hone in on those things, those key elements. And anything outside of that you don't have the expertise, that is where you want to refer those young adults to other agencies to receive those services. So what is a navigator? Well, a navigator is a person who wears many hats. They are a mentor, they're a job coach, they are a connector to resources, post-secondary education and employment. Speaking from personal experience, I am where I am today because of some caring adults in my life. And when you look at the state of the family today, not everybody has a mother or a father, and in some cases may not have either or. And so this is where this navigator is going to come into play to provide the mentoring and guidance to connect this person to some resources to help them become a self-sufficient, productive citizen of society. So that leads us to the objectives of the program, which is to remove barriers to employment, to education, to training, anything that is preventing that young person from accessing those resources or those opportunities. That is the role of the navigator, to ensure ongoing mentorship and to provide opportunities. A person doesn't know what they don't know. And so as a navigator, that person will need to be able to connect this person to training, provide career exploration, work experience, employment opportunities, and last but not least, financial literacy. Helping the young person understand the power of a dollar to help them get out of whatever situation that they're in. And so the question becomes, when we're looking at disconnected youth, youth who are disenfranchised, how do we make them feel a part of society? Well, this is case management at its finest when you're able to ask the right questions in order to provide the right services. And so here are the program supports, right? Because you need supports in place in order to work with this particular population. So when it comes to supportive services, this is something that you will have to build into your budget to assist youth with, let's say, apparel as it pertains to work or school, assistance with books, fees, school supplies, things of that nature. When it comes to incentives, well, this is where the Navigator can connect with RochesterWorks. This is something that we will pay for. And so when a young person reaches a milestone as it pertains to their performance and outcomes, we will incentivize them with anywhere from $25 to a $50 gift card. We also offer individual training account assistance up to $6,000. Over the years, we've connected young people to education opportunities for LPN, CNA, CDL, A and B, electrical, automotive, dental. I mean, the list goes on in terms of the opportunities. And when I look back at the history of this, we've kind of struggled a little bit in terms of really connecting our young people to certificate programs that's going to elevate them. So this is something I'm going to be really keeping my eye on moving forward. As we're bringing people into our system, what are we doing to help them move beyond the bare minimum in terms of the jobs that we're connecting them to? There's also transportation assistance. Per our policy right now, it's at $560. So we are able to pay for gas cards, monthly bus passes, up to $560. And then there's the work experience. So be it incentives, the ITA accounts, transportation assistance, and work experience programs, those items will come out of the RochesterWorks budgets. You don't have to worry about forking that bill. So again, the one thing I will caution is that we don't want to use these items as the carrot to get people into our program. Reason being, because individual may see, oh, okay, I can go to RochesterWorks for a bus pass, and then that's the only reason why they come, right? So we want to figure out, what is the ultimate goal as it pertains to employment and education. Once we figure out the goal, then we work backwards in utilizing these other supports and connecting these young adults to resources. Navigator duties: outreach, recruitment, assessment, eligibility for determination. And so I still have to say that the Navigator role is not a person who is going to sit behind the desk, okay? We're talking, out of school population, we're talking young folks with multiple barriers. If your agency has multiple programs in which they can be a funnel to the Navigator program, great. If that is not your current situation, then you would need to figure out, who will be that pipeline, or who can you go to, where can you go in order to reach, the targeted population. Because again, for each Navigator, the goal is for them to have a caseload of 25 youth. So you want to think, you want to give this some thoughts in terms of what would this look like for recruitment, given the state of our economy. Then once you figure out, where that pipeline is coming from, to be able to develop the what we call the ISS, the Individual Service Strategy Plan. So again, once you figure out in terms of engaging that young person, what the ultimate goal is, then you work in providing the needed services to help them whatever barriers or hurdles that's keeping them from obtaining their goal in life. There are the WIOA 14 elements, which I will talk about in later slides, and that's also noted in attachment A. Attachment A of 9, 14 WIOA elements. These are services that we have to expose the young people to, because I go back, you don't know what you don't know. So I will speak more to that. And again, it's based on their interests and their needs. And the other piece is this, the engagement piece. Youth engagement has been, I'm going to say, a struggle, not just for our area, but kind of across the board in terms of how do you engage young people, especially with the many changes that's happening in culture, so to speak, right? And so I'm proud to say that in the 20 years that I've been here at RochesterWorks, we went from funding programs that worked in isolation and silo to now we fund, I want to say, a system that is cohesive, working together in terms of trying to figure out some of these barriers that are happening across the board in order for us to build upon capacity. We went from failing performance measures early on to now we meet our performance goals. And I think a lot of that is due to us working together. So for anyone who is thinking about applying for this grant, come with the mindset of teamwork. And then we have the fabulous OSOS, the one-stop operating system. So this is a database system that we utilize to case manage the folks that are in our program. We will provide the training and technical assistance around that system. Again, in doing this, I don't want folks to think that they have to do this alone. I want you to know that you are working in partnership with RochesterWorks. So utilize our services, get to know what is it that we offer here at RochesterWorks, and working in tangent in terms of supporting the needs of the youth in your program. So here at RochesterWorks, we offer interest and skills assessments. We offer a plethora array of workshops that both the Navigator and the youth can take part in. One-on-one resume reviews, mock interviews. Again, I don't expect the Navigator to know all of these things. However, I do expect them to participate in some of these workshops and some of these trainings in order to be familiar with how to utilize some of these assessments and or provide these services to the young adults that they're serving. Just a year ago, RochesterWorks, thanks to some funding, we purchased a virtual career exploration kit, which gives exposure to manufacturing, automotive, skills trades, to name a few. It will be expensive and time consuming to send an individual to all these different industries to figure out if this is something of interest. And now with the use of putting on a goggle, so to speak, a person has immediate access to the feel and touch of what a day of work will look like if they were to pursue something in the skilled trades. So if you have not had an opportunity to sample that, this virtual technology, please, outside of this, feel free to connect with me directly. And last but not least, again, I just want to emphasize that both the Navigator and the young people will have access to the resources here at the Career Center, be at the Career Center at 100 College Avenue, or here at the Youth Center at 57 St. Paul Street, should you need to utilize some of our tools to work to better assist you in working with your clients. In terms of population, listen, we do not discriminate. We work with everyone, right? So from those who've been touched through the judicial system to those aging out of foster care, those with disabilities, parent and teens, the list goes on. Currently, we are working with, or I'm funding, RochesterWorks is funding Community Place, Starbridge, Urban League. And what's interesting, and Center for Youth, what's interesting is that, Starbridge may refer someone to Urban League because, they have more expertise around the skills trades because they have the youth build program there, and or they also work with folks who have records. Vice versa, Community Place may refer someone over to Starbridge. Well, Starbridge expertise is working with youth with disabilities. So that's what I'm talking about when, when we do the reset come July 1st, I'm hoping to bring some partners to the table who are going to be willing and able to work with each other in order to serve the array of, the different population that exists here in our community. So who is it that we're trying to serve? Youth who are from the age of, well, law 16 to 24. However, our local policy is from 17 years of age and older. Reason being is because we're trying to, provide services to individuals who are able to reach their goals and outcomes within the year's time frame. A person who's 16 who just dropped out of school, well, they can't technically take their test, their high school equivalency test, before their graduating class. So we may have to hold on to them a little longer. So the younger we bring the people on board, the longer we may have to hold on to them. So just something to keep in mind. And there's always exceptions to the rules. Folks do come in every now and again asking for those exceptions. And as long as a person can speak to the outcomes that they can meet, we do make exceptions.
All right. Yeah, I gotta go. I'm heading into my bye.
So, so in short, again, we're looking to serve individuals who are, not employable and basically lack the basic skills with multiple barriers to employment and education. Speaking of barriers, here are the barriers for eligibility. A person who's dropped out of school, person who is basic skills deficient, homeless, foster care, a parent and teen. And what's interesting, a young person can have multiple barriers. There's 8 barriers listed. It's not uncommon for a person to have 6 or 7 barriers, right? And so when you come across a person who has these many barriers who are eligible for our program, youth engagement is going to be key to not only engaging them, but seeing them through the process. And so the intake process on the front end is huge. To enroll a person on day one, I will discourage that, because once you enroll them into our system, you own them, right? My recommendation is for folks to meet with individual, at a minimum 2 or 3 times to ensure that that person is ready. We know the saying that you can walk a horse to a well, but you can't make them drink, right? So you want to ask the right questions, you want to engage them, you want to ensure that they understand what they are getting themselves into prior to enrollment. So that's where, coaching and being able to empower that individual, put them in a driver's seat to them reaching their goal versus you trying to do it for them will come into play as you enroll them and meet outcomes. But what I tell folks is that you don't have to, I wouldn't stress over the outcomes that's coming up in some slides. I think the most important thing as you build out your program is think long and deep about how will you engage them? How will the navigator engage this person so that a relationship is built upon for longevity of them being able to stay with the program long enough to meet the goals and objectives. And so here are the WIOA 14 elements. There are 14 by law that we have to, should be able to provide. Now, you may not, when you have an opportunity, if you haven't done so already, definitely look through the RFP, attachment 9. We will go in details in terms of, each of these services that you should be able to offer a young person. Some of them you will be able to offer in-house, right? And then for others, you will have to outsource and or learn what your other partners are doing so that we can create that referral system in-house in order to provide, services to the young adults. So we already know, like for Number 7, supportive services. You're going to build that into your budget. Leadership, is optional whether you have that in-house to develop those services or you have to outsource that. Occupational skills training. We have funding around that when it comes to the paid work experience. RochesterWorks, we will pay for that. Pending funding, it could be up to 1,500 hours per navigator that we will give them the allowance to, divide up those hours amongst their participants. Not everyone who you enroll would need work experience, right? So we should say work experience for those who have little to no work experience, right? And then for those who may need just a little bit of coaching guidance, I say we connect them to, unsubsidized work. And then the WIOA 4th element, it continues on page 2. So, adult mentoring, follow-up services, comprehensive guidance and counseling, financial aid. So number 13, labor market and employment information services. That's RochesterWorks all day long. So I say refer them to us or let's work in partnership to provide those services. So you have to, for yourself, look through these 14 WIOA elements, figure out again, which ones you're able to provide in-house versus outsource versus, work with RochesterWorks. You also be responsible for, depending on the partner, creating an MOU or bringing that partner to the table so that I can create an MOU for the entire system. When it comes to providing these services, you want to be strategic and, in terms of, the location of your building, your offering, right? Are you going to provide, where will you go for outreach? Is this going to be in the city? Is it going to be in one of the in the suburbs? There are pockets of poverty in the suburbs as well. So I think just kind of being strategic, having a plan of, what other partners you're going to work with to build a pipeline, a referral system for folks to come and receive these services is going to be ideal. You don't want to leave that up to chance. You also want to build a rapport, with existing partners, doing similar work. I would say, let's work smart and not hard. So if there's other agencies doing similar work, let's bring them to the table and let's be partners with them as well. In addition to, there's some agencies that, again, may house multiple programs in your agency. So before you go out into the community to do X, Y, Z, start in-house, figure out who's doing what. I think that's the purpose of the Navigator. Because sometimes, we could be guilty of it too, where there's multiple programs going on and sometimes those programs in-house don't talk to each other, right? And I get it because everybody is very focused on what they're trying to do and meeting their performance and their outcomes. However, with the use of a Navigator, that'd be the Navigator role to go and learn about all these different services in-house to connect the dots so that when a young person is in need of one of those services, that young person, that Navigator is there to make the connection, make the referral. And then again, anything beyond that, then you go outside of the organization for, the other services. When it comes to, our performance, this is dictated to us from the state. And so at any given point when you exit folks within a year's time frame, the question becomes, for the first one, employment, education, employment, is this person enrolled in employment or education second quarter after exit? So if you exit 10 people, out of the 10 people, is 59% of those individuals, are they still actively enrolled in education and employment? 2 quarters out, or should I say, 4 quarters after exit, the question becomes, is 66% of those individuals, are they still enrolled? So this is how the Department of Labor measures our local area. And then there's the credential attainment rate, right, 56%. And career zone, that's more in-house, where we expect that 75% of your caseload will enroll in career zone to take advantage of those services and assessment tools that's being offered again to help you better connect the dots and help that young person see what is available in their interest of employment opportunities. Medium earnings, we really don't do much with that. That's kind of automatic based on where they're working. The state will know where a person falls in terms of from the time that they enter your program to the time they lock your program, did their income earnings go up? State will automatically track that. And then measurable skill gains. Again, in the year time frame, we're looking at 51%. Again, the details to all of these performance indicators can be found in attachment A of the proposal. It can be tricky when measuring performance. So just high level, there's 4 quarters in a year. If a person exits your program January, February, March, and again, when we're talking second quarter, it will become July, August, September. Again, if you exit somebody January, February, March, if we're talking 4 quarters, if we go 4 quarters out, we're talking January, February, March of the following year. So it doesn't take long, or let me rephrase that. It can be tricky, but we are here to provide the technical support to help you track and manage your performance outcomes. So the goal is, as you enroll folks, as you do the assessment on the front end, you really want to pay attention to, are you the right person to manage that person's interests as it pertains to employment education, right? Are you able to help them obtain at least one of their goals, right, within a year's time frame? We used to hold on to people, I kid you not, for 3 to 4 years. That's when we had, we were part of the in-school system. Given the new performance measures at hand, we want to ensure that the folks that we are enrolling into our programs, that goals are attainable within a year's time frame. Could somebody potentially roll over into the second year? Yes, but we don't want that to be the norm. So just being able to understand and track performance will be key for the success of the entire system. Contractual responsibilities. Each navigator will be responsible for, again, a caseload 25 youth, active youth at all times. And as you are exiting an individual out of your program, you are using your pipeline to replace them. So, so the goal is 25, using the OSOS database to case manage, track performance. The database, I just want to speak to that. I tell people this is our bread and butter, right? We receive funding based on how we are doing. And so it's on a Navigator to, at least within 5 days, go into the system and make some updates. Depending on who you talk to, OSOS is not, it's a database. It's not fun, but it's something that needs to take place. And in past, we've seen where weeks and sometimes months go by before they go in and update the system. That cannot be the case. And so whoever you bring on, whoever's going to take on that responsibility, will need to know that this is something for them to learn. RochesterWorks will provide them the tools and resources, but beyond that, it's on them to manage the system. And I've actually changed some things around in-house to ensure that we are more, not only just active, but more, when a person reaches out, not only do we have Bibiana, who oversees the monitoring aspect of it, but now we have Yolanda, our Navigator specialist, who is, I'm going to say, the buffer, right? She's, before they get to Bibi, they can go to Yolanda for the technical support, because Yolanda used to be a Navigator. Yolanda used to be in the Career Center. Yolanda has a plethora of lived experience working with the adult population and the youth population. So between the two of them, there should be little to no downtime as you connect with us and seek help. Okay, as we're nearing the end of my presentation, a little bit about the budget. So per Navigator, it's not to exceed $70,000. We were able to go up $10,000. So this is an increase from the previous. This is an increase from this current cycle. It's all inclusive, and you want to ensure that you are able to spend down those dollars within a year's time frame. So, for those who, for example, you say, well, I want 2 Navigators. Well, 2 times 70,000 is 140,000. If you want 3 Navigators, it's 210,000. So you just have to do the math, figure out how many Navigators you have the capacity to serve in-house, right? We will be looking at, in kind. The WIOA funds, it should not be a standalone. You should already have something in place, and with these dollars, you're going to enhance that as a result of bringing RochesterWorks to the table. For whatever reason, if you decide that you don't have the capacity and you only want to put in for 1 Navigator, you will need a plan to speak to what would that look like, especially during transition. Turnover is high these days, and I've witnessed where it has taken weeks and sometimes months to backfill the position. With our dollars, time is of the essence, and that type of downtime really impacts the system, and it impacts the outcomes. So, so preferably, we're looking for folks with who want 2 or more. That way, should somebody leave, someone is still there to manage, your in-house system until you bring another person on board, provide them training, get them caught up, and you're good. But having 1 Navigator, I've seen in the past where it can be very stifling to to your system. RochesterWorks, we are a cash-based accounting, so meaning that you will spend down the dollars and you will reimburse RochesterWorks. That's how that goes. So you will invoice us monthly. The goal is to invoice us timely because quarterly we meet with our board and we have to speak to and justify how we're spending out of dollars. We can't speak to that if folks are not submitting in their vouchers. So again, do you have the capacity and the resources to voucher us on a monthly and timely basis? In addition to that, there's a mandatory subrecipient site visit. There'll be 4 financial management review, subrecipient monitoring, procurement, property management. There's the independent audit that would take place the funds. So to keep monitoring what options would be the program. Here's an example of your budget. There is when you create your budget, just one word to the wise. If you leave a line item, and so you should choose to later on eliminate that's blank on the front end. So for example, if you look at this budget where you see in red, telephone, insurance, postage, and printing, it says NA. So whoever did this budget said, you know what, this is our in-kind, we don't need RochesterWorks funds for this. That's fine. But then life will happen, and you know what? You are not spending down in rent. And we like it when you spend down your dollars. So you decide, 6 months out that you want to do a budget modification. You can only move monies. Let's say it's $500 to any of these categories, with the exception of again printing, postage, insurance, and telephone. If you are not sure or you're not 100% positive how your year will look, then I will advise you to ensure that you make sure that you have dollar amount assigned to every single line item. Okay. Other than that, all the instructions and how to fill this out is in the proposal. Okay, so just a quick recap. This is a 3-year, funding cycle. We're funding positions within your organization. We're not funding programs / brick and mortar. I mean, and how you word it, right? But we're not looking to fund brick and mortar. We're looking to fund positions within your agency. Workforce development may be the missing link to the population that you are currently working with. And we are glad to be at the table to help you with providing the services. Keep in mind that the services should, they're individualized, working with the out-of-school population. So each young person's situation is going to be different. It's going to be unique from the next. You want to keep that in mind as you're looking at those WIOA 14 elements and as you're creating, your program, that you don't want to be rigid. For support, there's Navigator meetings monthly. The last Monday of every month, I bring folks together to collaborate, to share best practices and resources. There are quarterly meetings with administrators and their finance team, so they choose to bring them. Again, so that we can be in cahoots with how do we, support those doing the frontline work. And then last but not least, when it comes to the MOAs or MOUs, you want to make sure that, you bring those partners to the table if you don't have the resources or capacity to provide, certain services that is not in your wheelhouse. Do's and don'ts. April 21st, noon is when you want to submit, or prior, you want to submit your proposal prior to April 21st. I say follow directions, don't give us nothing extra. I remember an account where this particular person spent so much time regurgitating the statistics in our community that they failed to speak to the program. I kid you not. So yeah, just be mindful of just, I want to say that we've done an excellent job in streamlining the proposal over the years. We tell you exactly what we need in order to be able to make a final decision on who will be appropriate for this type of funding. And so just follow it to the T, nothing extra. Do not give us more stuff than necessary. Keep it simple. And walk us through what does it look like on a day-to-day basis when a person enters when they enter your building, your place of work, in terms of services, youth engagement, the partners that you're going to, bring to the table. How are you going to bring RochesterWorks to the table? Those are the areas that you want to be very descriptive in order to paint the picture of, I'm going to say, success. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is to educate, train, and connect folks to employment opportunities, education opportunities, minimizing barriers to such in its simplest form. So keep it simple and follow the guidelines within the proposal that we're seeking. Questions?
Yeah, forgive my ignorance on this because we're kind of new in this space and just trying to learn. But when you said the budget is all inclusive, does that mean that includes the costs that you detailed before for the pay that will go to the navigators and the benefits provided to the navigators? Or did you just mean inclusive of our expenses?
Inclusive of all the expenses. So from the $70,000, you're going to extract the wages, the wage of the navigator, and then whatever's left after that, it will go towards supportive services. Hold on one second. Can you, so out of the $70,000, let's say that you're paying a Navigator, 45,000. These are just made up numbers, right? So, so you have salary, you have fringe, and then again, anything after that, you can utilize it towards rent, utilities, supplies, telephone insurance, postage, printing, contracted services, mileage, staff development, equipment, supported services, and then there's a 5% cap on admin costs.
Perfect, thank you.
Were there any questions in the chat box, Theo?
No questions in the chat.
Okay. Other questions?
Jenny has raised her hand. Jenny Hotowski from Starbridge.
Okay.
Hey, Antoine, do the MOAs, do you want copies of those or just do you want them referenced?
I say for now, just have them referenced.
Okay,
And then should we move forward, then we will figure out how to bring RochesterWorks to the fold in order to share that resource across the board.
gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Good question. Other questions? Going once, going twice. That means I did my job.
Antoine, can we remind everyone who signed in late to please put your name and organization in the chat so that way Casilda can take attendance for who was present. So please, if you have not, please put your name and the organization that you represent in the chat. Thank you.
Again, the purpose of today was to, give you high level. I hope you just kind of simplify, what it is that we're looking for, attempting to do moving forward. And then again, once we figure out how we're going to move forward, we will bring folks together to further the conversation and continue to build this out. But again, this is high level. All the details is on our website with all, let me see, 10 attachments. So definitely take your time, read through all of those attachments on performance, target population, responsibilities. There's workforce terms and definitions. There's the WIOA 14 elements. There's also attachment in there that speaks to, how we will, monitor your program. It's all there. It is all there and it's simplified. At least that's the goal, for it to be simple for you to read and understand. So.
Hey, Antoine, I have one more, a comment and one more question. The comment is that if there are folks on this call who decide that this opportunity isn't for them, but who have, could be a referral source for the rest of us, please consider reaching out to Antoine or any of the organizations that end up getting funded, because we are always looking for new referral sources. And if you have a captive audience, we're happy to, send navigators to you to, talk to you about how that could work. My question is, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, Antoine, but it doesn't seem like in any of the attachments, there's any significant changes from the last round. They so far look the same, but I almost don't know if I'd recognize it because there's so much information in those. Is there anything we should know about that's different besides the increase in the amount of money?
So good question. And to your point, no, you know what? I decided to keep it. I didn't want too many changes, right? I think there's things that we need to work on in our hands, especially around, like, for example, the recruitment aspect, right? There's been a lot of turnover because of COVID. So I think there's a lot of things that we should strengthen. And I think the system that we have in place is a strong system, especially when I look back at, the performance over the years. So they say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think there are some things that we can do, but I don't think that's, it won't be under the RFP per se, but it'll be more once I, contract with those individuals and bring folks to the table, we can continue to build out the program, looking at some of our SOPs and policies. So you just reminded me of something. So if you are currently being funded through RochesterWorks, and you're going to submit your, a proposal to continue on, make sure that you speak to whatever elephant is in the room, right? So if you know that there's been issues with turnover, make sure that you speak to what will you do differently in order to, kind of manage that, so to speak. Or if you haven't been at full enrollment, right? Or if you've been, for whatever reason, constantly late in turning in your monthly vouchers, right? Any of those nuances, you make sure you speak to us so that we know that you are aware of it and that you are attempting to do something different in order to fix and or change, things moving forward. If you're an organization, you got 5 navigators, but yet for whatever reason, you only served 50 youth this past year, and that's a stretch. But again, you want to make sure that you speak to those things, so that we on this side, and I'm going to form a team. There's going to be some RochesterWorks folks, some people who sit on my youth committee, some folks that are in the community. It's going to be a plethora of different. And you don't want to assume that, oh, Antoine knows what's going on, so he's gonna. No, I want you to write your proposal as if there's gonna be fresh eyes and you know nothing about your program and or the relationship.
Antoine, this is Lisa Barron. I had a quick question. So
Yeah.
is the pot of money the same as 3 years ago that you're allocating?
Yes, with the exception of so we've had a program or two drop out in this last cycle, which then
Okay.
allowed me to increase. So while the money is the same, I was able to increase the number per navigator. And so definitely take a look at, the salaries of your navigator, because we want to make sure that we are able to retain those, who's doing good work and not lose them because we're not paying them enough. And this is a projection. So I have not received allocations yet, so I have to go based on what I'm currently receiving. Should there be more monies, this could change, or we could put out another RFP. But right now, just to be on the safe side, I'm putting out what I received, what I've been receiving over the last couple of years.
Okay. And then the follow-up question is, what's your goal of number of navigators that you want in the system?
So right now, based on the dollars at hand, 14 navigators.
Thank you.
Yep. Because 70,000 divided by $980,000 is 14. So that could change depending on if the state decides to be very generous. But right now, I just want to try to be as fair and accurate based on what's at hand, and not overly project. Good questions. Anything else?
Antoine, I have a question.
Yes.
Are you looking for 14 navigators from community-based organizations outside of RochesterWorks? Like, will you hire navigators to work at RochesterWorks as a part of this initiative?
At the moment, out of this pot of money, no. So this is outside of RochesterWorks. Good question. And that's my goal, right? Is to be able to put this money into the community, and for us to be more of a support than I don't want to say competition, but I'd rather you all do it and we be there to support you and provide the technical support and assistance versus doing it simultaneously. Because what happens sometimes is that just like you, now I'm focused on making sure that my team is performing, and I don't want that to be a distraction from us providing support to you. Because listen, when we are monitored and when we receive our performance from the state, it's Monroe County. They don't differentiate who's doing what. We kind of do that internally to figure out how folks are contributing. But yeah, I'm looking to shift gears a little bit and support you all, those who are at the table for this funding.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
This is all new. This is all new to me, so I would definitely need a navigator myself. But anyway, I would like to know. I know that there's a lot of data that needs to be collected in order for us to show progress and also see that people that are going through these programs are okay. Oops. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I'm
but you just
sorry.
very faint though.
Okay, maybe my advanced audio is down. It was. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Much better. Yes.
All right. Okay. I apologize. Okay. Yes. So yeah, I know that the data collection is going to be very important in order for us to report in, progress that's being made by the people going through the programs. Do you have specific data that you prefer that's being used, or just the collection of what, each agency has independently?
But it's very specific, and we would give you. So we utilize the OSS, the one-stop operating system. It's a state database. It's very specific in terms of demographics that we collect and the services that you're providing. So you don't have to guess, what it is that we're going to collect from you. We will tell you exactly, and we will train you on it.
Okay. Like I said, I'm new. Thank you for that. We'll know who we hire for that. So thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, folks. Well, listen, thank you for tuning in. I was getting nervous because I know it was a quick turnaround in terms of folks, receiving the information and then, being able to participate, listen on and whatnot. So I'm loving the support and I look forward to reading through the proposals. If there's no other questions, enjoy the balance of your day.